Good afternoon, everyone. We are reading the Spiritual Treasures, which are letters of Swami Turiyananda. The section we're on are letters translated from the Bengali. In the second half of the book, it will be letters that he wrote originally in English. Today's letter, I'm going to say just a little bit, explains the difference between Advaita and non-dualism and dualism, and it's dense. Okay, he was in Konkan on 14 June 1914. We're on page 70 if you're following along with your book. Dear X, I was glad to receive your letter of June 9. It is natural that all bodies are affected by disease. One achieves perfect health as a result of great virtue. The scripture says, disease, bereavement, suffering, bondage, and misfortune, these are the fruits of one's bad karma. That's from the Hitopadesha. One can greatly minimize the suffering by taking refuge in God and saying, let the afflictions and the body take care of themselves. O my mind, you dwell in bliss. Lamentation or complaint does not help in any way. It only accentuates the suffering, and in addition, makes one forgetful of God. It is terribly frustrating for a person who has craving for sense pleasures but has a sick body. On the other hand, for practicing spiritual disciplines, one needs a good mind. Perfect health may not be so important. One worships God with one's mind, and the mind remains in good condition if one does good works, irrespective of the condition of bodily health. That is why one should be extremely watchful about the purity of one's actions. Every day the body is moving slowly towards destruction. None can stop it. But the mind continues eternally. Body after body will come and go. But the mind will persist and take up bodies again and again until one attains complete illumination. Therefore, the main task is to make an effort to purify the mind. Dualism or non-dualism, whatever you say, both are connected to the mind. When one experiences I am the Atman, one becomes established in Advaita or non-dualism automatically. Again, when one experiences both body and mind, he is in the dualistic plane. When one realizes oneself as the Atman, the sense of duality at once disappears. Then only does the awareness of undifferentiated consciousness remain. All problems arise because of attributes, upadis. I am so-and-so, son of such a person, of this caste, endowed with these qualifications, and so on. Such ideas increase the sense of duality. I am not the body, the mind, or the intellect. I am the Atman, pure and untainted by sin. I am existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. When one feels this, where is duality? It is not enough to recite these words. One has to experience them. You now have full awareness of your name and personality. When that awareness is identified with the Atman, you will have the non-dualistic experience. Dualistic worship is needed to attain non-dualistic experience because we live in the dualistic plane. This dualistic attitude has to be gradually purified by establishing a close relationship with God through worship. Now our relationship is only with the world. We must sever our attachment to the world and connect it to God. When that is fully accomplished, duality will vanish by itself. Only God, the Supreme Self, will then remain. This puny I, or ego, will disappear. This is a mode of sadhana through which one reaches non-dualism from dualism. Another way of attaining the non-dualistic experience is by the practice of discrimination. Not this, not this. Deny everything this very moment and reflect. I am not the body, nor the mind, nor the intellect. I am the Atman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. I do not die at the death of the body. Happiness and misery are characteristics of the mind and not of me. I am the Atman, full, one without a second, and beyond mind and speech. When one experiences this, one becomes established in the non-dual state. But is it an easy affair? Does it happen simply by talking about it? Certainly not. The Master used to say, what will happen if you simply close your eyes and say, no thorn, no prick, no thorn, no prick? Whenever you place your hand on the thorn, it pricks. What will happen if you simply say, I am of the nature of the sky? Then when you have to pay taxes, you are in agony. Therefore, one cannot reach the non-dualistic state at one stroke. That is why Krishna said to Arjuna in the Gita, the ideal of the unmanifest is hard to attain for those who are embodied. Chapter 12, verse 5. But those who consecrate all their actions to me, regarding me as the supreme goal, and who worship me, meditating on me with single-minded concentration, to them, whose minds are thus absorbed in me, verily I become ere long, O Partha, the savior from the death-fraught ocean of the world. Chapter 12, verse 6 and 7. If one can truly depend on God, one receives help from him. The Lord makes everything favorable for him. Again, is it also so easy? Can each and all do that? Not at all. It is only possible by the grace of God and the association of a great soul. Otherwise not. Mere prattling does not help. Learn to explore your mind and see what tendencies are there. Then purify your tendencies and offer them to God. This is also not an easy job. If a person can achieve this full resignation to God at the cost of his whole life's effort, he becomes blessed. On the whole, spiritual life is not a joking matter. Dualism or non-dualism, whatever you may say, is very difficult to translate into life. Shankara, the great teacher of Vedanta, points out the difference between dualism and non-dualism. The dualist says, I am yours, and the non-dualist says, I am verily you. There is a slight distinction between these two attitudes, but their results are the same. Cessation of ignorance and suffering. This is from the Bodhisara, chapter 32. So one can adopt one of these two attitudes according to one's temperament. The main thing is, one should follow one's sadhana or practice sincerely. Otherwise, it is like the pundit in the Master's parable of the Milkmaid, who walked over the river chanting God's name, whereas the Brahmin pundit, while trying to walk over the river, chanted God's name and lifted his cloth, and eventually sank due to lack of faith. Is everyone familiar with that parable? The pundit said, they said, take the name of the Lord and chant, and you can walk straight across. The milkmaids all walked straight across because they had that kind of faith. And the pundit himself doubted, so he lifted. Healing does not work. If I want to adopt the non-dualistic attitude, I will have to deny the body, mind, and intellect. As soon as I say, I am the Atman, my feelings of happiness and misery must go, and I shall experience myself as partless, actionless, tranquil, blameless, unattached. This is from the Svetasvatara Upanishad. On the other hand, if I say, I am the child of God, his servant, then I will have to resign myself completely to him with the firm conviction that whatever he does for me and wherever he keeps me is absolutely for my good. Both paths are equally difficult, and both paths demand spiritual disciplines. But the results of both are the same: the cessation of ignorance and the attainment of supreme bliss. There is no doubt about it. Let one follow the path which is suitable for that person, but one must practice it wholeheartedly. Otherwise, neither path will yield any result. The Lord Krishna, while instructing Uddhava in the 11th book of the Bhagavatam, has clearly stated different paths of yoga suitable for different types of persons. I'm mentioning this here for your information. I have spoken of 3 yoga, he's quoting now from the Bhagavatam. I have spoken of 3 yogas for the welfare of mankind. They are the yogas of knowledge, action, and devotion. There is no yoga other than these. Those who have dispassion and no yearning for action should follow the path of knowledge. Those who have not developed dispassion and in whom desires persist should follow the path of action. And those who have innate feelings of love and devotion, who take delight in my word, who are neither attracted to the world nor have complete dispassion for it, should follow the yoga of devotion in order to attain perfection. If you carefully reflect on the above passage, you will easily ascertain who is fit for which kind of yoga. There are not many persons whose minds are completely withdrawn from sense objects. Therefore, the followers of the path of knowledge are very few. Those who are very much attached to worldly things cannot remain without doing any work. Hence, those who are in between, that is to say, who are not completely dispassionate nor too much attached to the world, those who have faith and devotion to God, if they follow the yoga of devotion, they will soon attain knowledge. This yoga of devotion is easy to practice and yields quick results. And it begins with a dualistic attitude. Afterwards, when by the grace of God this attitude has developed, non-dualistic awareness dawns by itself. Enough for today. Yours, Turianonda. Were there any questions about any of that before we go on? Okay. Number 36, Konkal, 27 July. Question?
Yes, I mean, crossing the river, walking across the river, I just read a story in the Ramakrishna book about a monk who was going to show his powers of walking on the water.
Oh, that was a different story, John.
It's a different idea.
Yeah, it's a different story.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was the faith of the Milkmaids. And the sage came and No, that was a different one. Okay, a pundit came and the milkmaids were standing on the bank of the river and needed to get across. And he said, chant the name of the Lord and walk straight across. And they did. They didn't watch their skirts or anything. They just walked across chanting the name of the Lord. Now, the pundit himself chanted the name of the Lord, but lifted his dhoti so it wouldn't get wet. And because of that doubt that he had, it was a doubt that he would make it across without getting wet. He didn't have full faith in the Lord. So he sank. It's not that other story. Yeah, that's another story. Okay. Okay, number 36 Konkal. Dear X, again, we're talking to X. I have received your letter of 5 Shravan, July 1914, quoting from the Bhagavatam, Karma yogastu karminam. Karma yoga is for those who have desires. You have asked, what kind of karma is this? First, we see the word karminam, which means kaminam, those who have desires. How can those who have desires perform unmotivated action, nishkama karma? Their actions are invariably associated with desire, sakam, but that does not mean that they are bad. The desires really become bad when they are against the injunctions of the scriptures or motivated by evil. Those who have strong desires for enjoyment must work to fulfill their desires. Such people cannot grasp the precepts that describe motiveless action. For that reason, the scriptures teach them to perform action to fulfill their desires. The Gita mentions not only work without attachment to the fruits of the action, but also work associated with desires, such as Prajapati in the beginning created men together with sacrifice and said, by this shall you multiply. Let this be the cow of plenty and yield unto you the milk of your desires. The fact is that merely listening to advice does not help. And is advice of one kind only? Different kinds of instructions are used for different kinds of aspirants. A person is attracted to a teaching according to his temperament, and he derives benefit by following it with faith. So Krishna said, man attains high perfection by devotion to his duty. In other words, by performing one's own duty, one will endow his nature with divine qualities. This is the purport of the scriptures. Persons who have strong desires for enjoyment should fulfill them. Force or mere advice does not stop a person's craving for enjoyment. But along with enjoyment, one should have discrimination between the real and the unreal, for satiety never comes from enjoyment. Instead, desire increases more and more, like fire fed with melted butter. Therefore, along with enjoyment, one should practice discrimination. Then in the course of time, self-awareness will arise from discrimination, as happened to King Yayati in the Mahabharata. Of course, selfless work should be the goal, but the ideal cannot be achieved by force. In fact, it is impossible for a person without self-knowledge to perform desireless action, as such a person cannot be completely desireless. Before self-knowledge, the performance of desireless action is like akamo vishnukamova, desire for God who is not considered a desire. Because the desire for the world binds the soul, and the desire for God releases the soul. As the Master used to say, desire for devotion is not counted as desire. Hinchi is not to be counted as an ordinary green. It's kind of like spinach. Sugar candy is not to be counted as a sweet. The sour of lemon is not to be counted as sour. Hinchi, sugar candy, and lemon are said to have medicinal value. In other words, the desire for devotion does not cause bondage. Thus, if a person works for God, his work becomes desireless. Truly desireless actions can be performed only by the illumined souls, for their desires have been destroyed by knowledge. However, as I've already said, actions done with a desire to attain knowledge are also called desireless. Discrimination about work is very difficult. For that reason, Krishna said in the Gita, hard to understand is the way of action. Even the wise are perplexed as to what is action and what is inaction. So the Master, without going into the complexities, would pray, Mother, here is thy good karma, and here is thy bad karma. Take them both and grant me only pure love for thee. Here is thy vice, and here is thy virtue. Take them both and grant me only pure love for thee, and so on. No one has ever taught such a simple and easy method, suitable to all for God realization. If food is mixed with oil cake, a cow devours whatever is given to it. Similarly, if sprinkled with devotion, all actions are accepted by God. What a wonderful hint has our Master given. A man finds fulfillment in his life if he can somehow offer everything to God, regard him as his own, and direct all his thoughts and actions toward him. As the Master said this, so did Krishna repeatedly tell Arjuna in the Gita. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give away, and whatever you practice in the form of austerities, O son of Kunti, do it as an offering to me. Thus you shall be free from the bondage of actions which bear good or evil results. With your mind firmly set on the yoga of renunciation, you shall become free and come to me. Undoubtedly, it is a matter of great regret that we cannot put into practice such direct and easy instructions. The person whose mind is attached to sense objects must work according to the injunction of the scriptures and perform his own duty. Thus, gradually his mind will be purified and he will attain the state of desirelessness. That is why this process is called karma yoga. This also explains why the injunctions of the scriptures are so highly valued. He who discards injunctions of the scriptures and acts upon the impulse of desire attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme goal. Gita 16. These are the words of God. However, if one can offer everything to God, one no longer has any worry, anxiety, or fear. Such a person does not get confused by the intricacies of the scriptures and can avoid various complexities of life. May the Master give us right understanding so that by following his path we can attain eternal peace. With best wishes, Turianonda. Now, any questions? This next, we have another. X has received quite a few letters from Turiyananda, and he's covering some very not difficult things, some very easy concepts, but he keeps repeating them. So, any questions or comments?
I have one.
Oh, yes.
Okay, in other places, not Turiyanonda, but other swamis say even the desire for God, you're still in the gunas.
I'm sorry.
You said, you read that a desire and devotion for God is desirelessness.
They lead to desirelessness.
Okay.
They are considered not desire.
And is that like footsteps until you are
Yes.
there? Okay.
Yes, it's like footsteps, the steps you take. They're
It's
considered.
the only desire that,
If your only desire is for God, then you are, it's not considered a binding desire. It's one that's leading you to freedom and liberation and realization. The binding desires are the ones for the things of the world, the pleasures of the flesh, that kind of thing. Those are the binding desires. But the desires for God are considered not desires. Not binding desires is the way I would put it, yeah. And footsteps on the path is a good way to say it. I like that. Okay, we have a couple of announcements. We're going to have the 4th of July on Monday, which is going to be in Trabuco, but it is online only. And you can access it through the website, right? You access it through the website, Vedanta.org, and look up the main program and everything, and they will tell you how to connect. They're having road problems in Trabuco. They still have a road that's basically one way. And it's quite long. You don't want to back down it or back up it. Okay. Our lecture on Sunday will be How Can We Help? And it will be given by Pravrajika Vrajaprana. We will have Spiritual Treasures next Wednesday. We will have the gospel reading of Ramakrishna on Saturday, this Saturday, at 5 o'clock here in the temple. So we have Saturday, we have Sunday, you have online on Monday and Wednesday, in person or here. Okay? And we'll end with it. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.